Big news coming from the MLB world today. First of all, the Phillies have fired Joe Girardi. That's big news, big breaking news. Tom Dombrowski giving him the boot. See you later. And Yordan Alvarez and the Houston Astros agreeing to a big 6-year deal worth $115 million. Big news out of the MLB. We'll get into all that and more right here on Bleacher Brawls. My name is Derek, and let's get into it. Obviously, it's big news here. I'm going to start off with Yordan Alvarez, actually. We'll get into Joe Girardi a little bit later. But big news for the Astros. I think this is a great contract for both sides. 6 years, $115 million. It's about $12 million a year in the arbitration on the average for the 3 arbitration years. That starts next year. And then $3 million, the 3 free agency years that the Astros are buying out. That's at $26 million a year. I think it's a great deal for both sides. It's good value for Yordan, good value for the Astros. This is one of those deals that should work out for everyone. And this is the biggest ever contract for a DH. And it's according to Jeff Passan. And it makes sense for both sides. It really does. It's a great deal for both sides. Great for Yordan. You get that big contract at first, especially for a DH, and the Astros lock him up, get arguably their best hitter. In my opinion, I think he might be their best hitter. And I think that's huge. That's huge. And he's only 24. Doesn't turn 25 till June 27th. So that's huge. That's huge for them. And I think this is going to show where baseball is going with DHs at. DHs are going to be able to get paid a little bit more because now the DH is a legitimate position all throughout baseball. It's not just in the American League. Now with the universal DH, there's 30 DH spots. It's a legitimate position on every single team. You have to have a DH in your lineup unless, you're crazy and you're going to let your pitcher hit. But why would you do that? I don't know why you would. So it just, to me, makes sense that the DHs will start to get paid more now as it's a regular position throughout the whole MLB. And as MLB, and this is a market-setting deal for Yordan. It's one of the biggest deal for DH ever. And when he hits free agency, those 3 free agent years the Astros bought out, it's $26 million a year. That's big money for a DH. And when this contract ends, Yordan, I think, it'll be his age 31 season. He'll turn 32 when he hits free agency, and he will be able to get probably more money then, because not only will MLB players probably be getting paid more then anyways, the value of the DH could even go up because it's, like I said, it's a legitimate position now throughout the whole MLB, not just the American League. And that's huge. That's massive. That's so massive. Now, it should be noted that, Yordan is still young, doesn't have a bunch of experience in the big leagues. Like I said, he hasn't hit arbitration yet. It's the 4th biggest deal for a guy who hasn't hit arbitration. But he's been stellar this year. 272, 14 homers, and 941 OPS. He's on pace to hit around 50 homers this year. That's how good he's been so far. I'd say just under 50. But I'm not saying he's even going to do that, but he's on pace to do it. So that's how good he's been to start the season. And over his career, just over 1,000 at bats, 287 average, 75 homers, 946 OPS. I mean, jeez, talk about a career so far. He's been very, very good so far. And for the Astros to lock him up now is huge. And it is the biggest it's the first contract over 5 years that the Astros have signed under their owner, Jim Crane, which that's also a big thing for the Astros as well. I didn't even realize that they hadn't signed a guy over 5 years, which sounds kind of crazy because they've had some guys for a long time. But I guess that's from Bob Nightingale on Twitter. So who knows? Maybe he's wrong, but he probably isn't, which is surprising to me. And the Astros, I think that bringing a guy like Yordan, it's going to just help them to stay competitive when they start losing some pieces like a Michael Brantley. And maybe you end up losing at some point Bregman or Altuve or Gurriel is actually more likely. Maybe don't use Altuve or Bregman, but they're gonna start losing a couple guys here and there. They're gonna have to pay Kyle Tucker. They're gonna have to start paying guys. Yuli Gurriel's not getting any younger, so they could start losing a couple guys. So locking in this core of kind of Yordan, hopefully they get Kyle Tucker locked up if you're an Astros fan. You'd like to see that. And you keep Altuve and bring him in there, as long as you can. And that's your kind of core forward. Maybe, you get some more production from Jeremy Pena. You add Jeremy Pena into the fold and Chas McCormick. That's 6 guys right there. And, that's kind of use yourself set for the next, what, 5-6 years if you get Tucker signed long term. The Astros can still continue to win. And it sounds ridiculous because everyone's just like, their farm system isn't good anymore. They can't really call up guys, but like they just did it with Jeremy Pena. I mean, he hadn't played a bunch of, it's not like he hasn't played like a whole bunch of games, in the high minors, but they're still like, you know what? We trust him. We believe in him. We're calling him up, bringing him up because Correa's leaving, and it worked. And he's playing great. Chas McCormick, Springer leaves. Well, we got Chas McCormick here. We're going to roll with him, and it's worked. And I think that's big for the Astros. They need that. They need that. And they going to want to continue that when guys like Yuli Gurriel leave and Michael Brantley leave because they're not getting any younger. And even Martin Maldonado to an extent. The next big bit of news was Joe Girardi getting fired. Former Yankees manager. The Yankees fans will know. Now he's the Phillies manager. Dave Dombrowski said, get the boot. Kick the boot. There's been a lot of rumors going around the last week or so about, will he get fired? The Phillies have struggled. Could Dave Dombrowski be looking at Jim Leland, bringing him a return into the into big league managing? All that stuff's been kind of floating around, and it just seems like now the Phillies have just said, what, we're done with Joe Girardi. Just get out of here. And this decision was Dave Dombrowski's decision. You had to get the owner's blessing, but from Bob Nightingale, he said the firing of Phillies manager Joe Girardi was strictly GM Dave Dombrowski's decision with owner Don Middleton's blessing. And the Phillies have named Rob Thompson a interim manager, and he will manage the rest of the season before they decide on who's going to be the manager in 2023. And they're saying that he's just an interim manager. So it seems likely that he won't be the manager next year. But for the rest of this year, it seems that he will be the manager unless something happens and he gets fired somehow, which I don't know how that would happen. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting for the Phillies. And it's surprising because they're not in a super strong division. Like the Mets are obviously kind of running away with that division, but everyone else is under 500. And the Phillies are 3-7 in their last 10. They've struggled massively. And I think that's kind of what we were thinking about this team, right? This Phillies team, the offense should be there, but the big question is going to be the pitching and the defense. And I don't think you can build a team like that. Like, I don't care who's playing well, who's not playing well. I don't think you can build a team with guys that, when you don't really have defense and you don't really have pitching, it's just not going to work. Like JT Realmuto, he's a good catcher. Is he the best defense catcher in the world? No, it's not bad defensively, but it's not great. He's good, but he's not great. He's not that, upper level. Rhys Hoskins, that's definitely an offensive first guy. Alec Boehm, you can make the argument offense first. Johan Camargo, I'd say defense. That's their active, but not on the active roster. Didi Gregorius has been the worst defensive shortstop in the last 6 years, and it's not even close. Jean Segura is not great defensively at all. Schwarber, he's not good defensively. Odubel Herrera has had his moments in the outfield that they don't look good. Bryce Harper, yes, he's good defensively, but he can't play the field right now. He's stuck to DH duty, which means Nick Castellanos has to play the field, and he's terrible. He's horrific. He's horrific in the outfield. This team's defense on a scale of 1 to 10 is -10. They don't have defense, which doesn't help their pitching because their pitching isn't good. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense how you can expect to win, be competitive when there's 3 stages of baseball: offense, defense, and pitching. The Phillies don't have 2 of those things. So I don't know how they're expecting to be competitive without defense and without pitching. Offense only carries you so far, and when the other things aren't there, it's not carrying you that far at all. And I think that's a big thing to realize with the Phillies. It's less, I think it's honestly, yes, Girardi gets the kind of emotion of, yeah, you haven't done well with this team, and I understand changing managers. Maybe it'll kickstart the Phillies. Who knows? Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But I don't think the roster construction is good. They literally haven't had pitching for so long, and that's what we said. They need pitching. They need pitching. They need pitching. And what do? Not get pitching. They went out and get offense. What that doesn't give you defense either. Like, I don't know what the Phillies are like. What is Dave Dombrowski doing there? He's trying to manage the Phillies like they're the Red Sox, and they're not. Like, or like they're like, you can't just get a bunch of like guys who are good and just expect them to magically get better defensively, even though they're good offensively. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The roster construction of the Phillies, it really doesn't. And and because they're trying to win, they're not really rebuilding their farm system. That needs to be rebuilt because it's not that great. They have a couple guys, they have a couple guys there, but it's not there. And that's why the Red Sox had to get rid of Dombrowski, because their farm system was horrendous, and he pretty much made them up. He won the one World Series, and then boom, nothing. Go 500. And at that point, it's just like, you can't run with Dombrowski. Your team needs to be close to winning a World Series to have Dombrowski as your general manager. And then he can maybe win you a World Series. But then after that, as soon as you start going down, you got to get rid of him. He can't be the GM of a 500 team. He just cannot do it. Cannot do it. Literally cannot do it. And that's, I think, where the Phillies have gone wrong. You cannot bring in Dave Dombrowski as your GM when you're not close to winning a World Series. You just can't. You just cannot do it. And at this point, Dave Dombrowski might need to see the boot as well, because and this comes from a Red Sox man who, yes, I'm happy he won the World Series in 2018, but Dombrowski, look what he did to us. Look what he did to the farm system. Look what like 2019, we weren't good. And he tried rushing guys up to patch together a bullpen in 2019, calling up like Darwin's and Hernandez when he probably shouldn't have been called up. And now Darwin's stuck in AAA and can't even get back in the big leagues. It's this thing with Dombrowski where he just cannot get teams to the promised land if he has to start like from a 500 team. If he takes control of a good team like he did with the Red Sox, he can get them to a World Series. And that 2018 Red Sox team was a force to be reckoned with. However, the future of that team wasn't there. They had no prospects. They could not fill in any holes if any guys left. And if guys started to play that or whatever it was, they just could not do it. And that was the problem. And I'm not saying like they shouldn't trade for Chris Sale, because they won a World Series partly and because of him, because he was a big part of that team. But they losing some of the guys who they lost in some trades definitely hurts. Am I happy with the 2018 World Series? Yes. But am I happy with how Dombrowski managed a team going into 2019 and in 2019 before he got fired? No, I'm not. And we got put in such a bad decision because our farm system was ripped to the bones. Ripped bare. There's nothing there. All the shelves were empty. It's like an abandoned store. There's nothing there. And I think that's the problem with Dombrowski. He cannot be the general manager of a team that is not good, because he's not going to build up the farm system. He's just going to try and win and try and sign contracts to win. And it just isn't going to work. It's not going to work. It will not work. But that's going to wrap it up. Big news today in the big leagues. Obviously, Yordan Alvarez contract, Joe Girardi firing. Some big news. And we'll see how everything plays out with the Astros and Yordan, and how it will play out with the Phillies. And we'll see. We'll just have to see what happens with both of them. Very interesting from both teams. If Yordan contract extension was unexpected, but the Girardi firing was expected at some point. So 2 big pieces of breaking news today. And make sure to check out all the links in the description. Obviously, the website, podcast, Twitter, Instagram, all the Cruise Twitters are down there. And make sure to check out, stay updated on our Twitters, because we sometimes do Twitter spaces during the Red Sox games. Maybe not this week with the Red Sox on our West Coast road trip. But just keep an eye out for those. And see what we're doing, see what we're up to. Also check out our podcast that's getting going. So that's doing well. And yeah, check out everything in the description. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this video and the channel to everyone you know. And you're watching Bleacher Brawls. My name is Derek, and we'll see you next time.